back to the Gentleman's Gazette in our live stream. Today you can ask me anything. I even have YouTube up, so I see your live questions. So just ask along. I'll try to catch up. So the first question here was about a Fedora and how you can wear it. Well, first of all, fedoras, a lot of people call any hat pretty much a fedora, but that's not necessarily what a fedora is. If you're unsure about the different hat shapes, like what's the difference between a pork pie and a fedora and a bowler hat, we got some videos about that. Now, fedora is typically, like a wider brimmed hat. And overall, not every hat is suited for every head style. So we got a video for that, what hat suits your face. So first of all, check if a fedora is right for your face shape. If you determine that it is, I personally think, like a brown fedora is really nice, mid-brown, dark brown, if you wear a lot of earthy tones. You can also get something in a medium gray. I particularly like a mottled gray, but you could also get something like a navy. And then just like with any hat, changing the headband, because most hats that you buy, from a store come with a default like tone-in-tone headband. If you add something contrasting, you really change the look and elevate everything. So what rules are absolute when it comes to black tie? I bought white tie, mother of pearl studs and cufflinks with gold plated. I know that's not a traditional choice, but I like them more than black. Yes, first of all, right, the tradition is that you wear studs in the first place, which requires a shirt that has the openings for studs. Now, if you go back and you look at older illustrations, you can often see, or you look at older jewelry, they often came in dress sets. So what you had was cufflinks, right, oftentimes double-sided. Then you had shirt buttons, sometimes just 2, sometimes 3, very rarely 4. And then you had waistcoat buttons, right? They were exchangeable waistcoat buttons that you would put in, and then you'd have the full outfit. Then, black tie came along, and oftentimes the white tie vest out of Marcella Piquet was substituted for something black. Then, people started adding fixed buttons, right, to their vest. So then you ended up just with the studs and the cufflinks. Personally, I think you can use a silver-colored metal, or you can use a gold-colored metal or something rose gold. Just make sure that your studs go well together with your cufflinks. And if you're interested about the whole historic background about black tie, we have the most extensive black tie guide in the world, and it's very comprehensive. So we got stuff for like just basic beginners. Here is what you do when you put together your first black tie outfit, and very much advanced stuff. So please go check that out. Why did men stop wearing breeches? I got a pair last weekend and they were quite comfortable. I think that would be a good subject for another video. I have, one pair of them. I think you need really the tall over the calf socks, that you flap over and then you keep them up. I think people are just not really, on their hunting estate, and it was probably associated with a certain class, and so they just kind of got away from that because it was heavy fabric. People don't wear tweed jackets or tweed suits anymore, but I think it's a great garment. It looks very different, and if you're into clothes, it's a great piece to invest in, especially as a 3-piece. Sometimes they come as 4-piece suits, which is really cool. What would be the best outfit for a groom planning on having a daytime beach wedding? I think, it's a very personal question. Right? If you're at the beach, you're probably more relaxed. Do you even want to wear shoes? I don't know. Maybe you wear flip-flops, right? These are all things to consider. Do you want like a long pair of pants? I'd say if you go for that, stick with lighter colors. Skip any type of black, right? Maybe like beige, earth tones, And then, you know, like maybe you wear a color like this jacket, you know, so you stand out from the bride, but it's kind of appropriate to the season. Will you ever be expanding your bow tie collection to new patterns? You know, actually, we do extend our collection regularly. I think, you know, this is a pattern, for example, here. This is a very nice English silk, and it has this kind of rotating pattern. And we also offer this as a bow tie version. What we try when we do bow ties is to just, you know, don't do the run-of-the-mill like black and blue or like red and blue, but this is this kind of unusual mauve color, right? We try to add colors that are unusual, that you don't find everywhere. So if we add stuff, we do that. If you have specific suggestions, you know, let us know. Always open to that. How can I style a flat cap? We got a full video for that. So maybe you'll get a link and people share it with you. How could I start dressing up as a middle schooler who's also maintaining mobility? You know, good question. I think we did a video on like how to dress up as a younger guy. I think, you know, the first temptation is to go with a full three-piece suit that makes you stand out a lot, right? If you feel comfortable, okay. But I think just, you know, starting maybe with a nice pair of chinos, maybe a pair of corduroys, right? Experiment with color. Then you can also add a jacket, you know, like maybe a blazer is a good first thing to start. Start combining that, get a dress shirt, maybe a few, and that's how you can really, yeah, do some cool or put together some cool outfits. I really enjoyed your videos from Vienna. Are there also hidden tutorial gems in Budapest? Does Budapest have its own distinctive sort of style, or is it just an offshoot of Vienna? You know, historically, yes, you know, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was one, so the styles are very similar, but then Budapest, you know, is part of the Eastern Bloc, so the craft suffered during that time. But, you know, we met a guy, I think, Mr. Scotwee. He's like, I think, British originally, but he is located in Budapest and makes bespoke garments there. There's also, you know, Laszlo Vash, and I did an internship there once for 6 weeks, you know, back in 2006, so a little while ago. But there were craftsmen, you could find stuff. So there's something there. Also, there's quite a few more Vienna videos out there, and if you haven't checked them out, please do so. It's a really great series. We visited lots of cool people, and more to come. So stay tuned for that. Vienna videos are excellent. Thank you. Yes, well, more to come. Very entertaining. So stay tuned for that. Hello from Paraguay. I would like to know if our pets should also have clothing that matches with us. You know, that would be a very bespoke look. I can see that, you know, that someone at PTO would pull it off, right? Having a suit in a certain pattern and then have your two dogs in the same pattern. I mean, obviously, you know, it looks very kind of intentional. Could be one way to say it, maybe contrived, could be another way to say it. Personally, I would, you know, probably not do that. I like style as kind of an expression of your individuality, so I think that's more my take. But if it makes you feel good, you know, go for it. I have a Burberry trench coat, and how do I tie the waist belt? Good question. You know, it is basically a belt, just like this belt, for example, here. I don't have the trench coat here right now, but let me just illustrate it using this belt, right? So the Burberry trench coat also has somewhat of a buckle, so you may be tempted to just put it in the buckle and then, you know, get it through the hole. That look can be a bit, I would say, you know, maybe like a school principal look, right? For a more kind of relaxed look, you basically don't even take them, but you just take them like that, and you just, like, you know, make a knot, basically. Now with the leather, obviously, it's not, you know, so easy to do that, but you can just make a double knot, and you can even shift the kind of buckle slightly to one side. That makes it look slightly askew, but, you know, it's intentional. It's a bit more like nonchalant, right? It has a bit more sprezzatura. So depending on what type of person you are, you know, if you only wear like gray three-piece suits, maybe you buckle it and get that look, that kind of firm look. If you're more relaxed and casual, maybe wear it the way where you tie it. Greetings from Lima, Peru. Yes, hola. using Bordeaux bow tie instead of black, along with a white smoking jacket. You're the best, thank you. You know, I think it's quite intriguing, right? It's called black ties. A lot of people are like, you know, it has to be black, it has to be this. I'm of the opinion that once, you know, you've mastered the basics and you got them all down, then you can experiment. And, you know, like if you have a nice, maybe a burgundy bow tie, I would say match the cummerbund. If you do that, don't go with a black cummerbund. Try to get something matching tonally, and then I would give it a try. You know, you could also get the burgundy silk socks with it. So you have that kind of, you know, burgundy bow tie, burgundy cummerbund, burgundy silk socks, and it would create a really nice harmonious look that is different, and it makes you stand out from the crowd for sure. Studs and cufflinks, because it's from a kid. We got that, I think, already. I'm a PhD student. I love to dress elegantly in my free time. How can I differentiate between conference outfits and night ones? You know, as a general rule, right, evening has typically darker outside colors, you know, white shirts and starker contrasts, color palettes reduced. If you're just, you know, a PhD student, you can't afford that much, you know, get a navy suit, but not a super dark navy, but just navy, then you can wear it during the day, but it's also fine at night, and you can kind of gap both worlds there. Scent of the day, you know, today I'm wearing kind of a more kind of summery outfit, right? It's kind of a blue, you know, blue pair of pants. I have this kind of white belt from Fort Belvedere with my white shoes. These are Fort Belvedere socks, you know, that pick up the color. And so it's more kind of summery casual. And I liked, you know, the blue of the pants. And so I wanted a scent that kind of matched that. So I went with blue suede shoes from Roberto Ugolini. Hello, gentlemen, we meet again. Yes, we do. If I want to improve my manners and etiquette from scratch, what are the top 3 habits I should start with? You know, there's a lot, but if you think about it from a kind of bird's eye view, right? What are manners there for? They're there for that you in society can all get along, and everyone is, you know, in a way where it's pleasant to be around you, right? If you just start and you burp, right, and you haven't taken a shower in 2 weeks, and you kind of, you know, let it rip and have a big fart, right? People are like, what is this person? I don't want to be there, right? So I think the first thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is like, who is this person around me, and how do I make sure they're comfortable, right? So it's like, it's your presence. You look them in the eye. You know, a smile, I always find, helps a lot, right? If you're around people, you're polite, right? You let them speak, but you also kind of, you know, shake the hands, look them in the eye. You ask them a question. I think if you have these basics down, you're on a good path. Then, you know, you can look into like table manners and etiquette and all that stuff, right? And we'll try to add more etiquette videos so you can kind of brush up on your etiquette. You know, maybe you learned it from your parents, maybe you didn't, but it's never too late. You can always learn. Any news on the fancy seersucker trousers, the estimated price, for example? Yes, you know, like seersucker is obviously a summer fabric. I wore a lot of fabrics prototype. I'll have even more fabrics. And when we make a product at Fort Belvedere in the Gentleman's Gazette, you know, we focus on quality. That's the utmost thing for us. It has to be a really good quality. We want it to be in a style that is, you know, inspired by the 1930s, classic, timeless. And so when you get a fabric, right, when you get a made-to-measure suit, for example, you can get any fabric, and you make a suit, and then you maybe realize, you know, this is actually not a good fabric for pants, because a fabric needs to have the right integrity. You know, it can't bunch out in the knees when you sit a lot, for example. And so with every fabric we test it extensively, you know, we wash it a lot, and only then, if we're saying this is kind of worthy of a Fort Belvedere pair of pants, do we produce them. So sometimes, you know, that takes longer. Now we're at a point where we say, yes, we can move forward with that, but seersuckers are more of a summer trouser, so look for 2026 is when we're going to have that. And then pricing, you know, pricing changes all the time, right? Like the euro exchange rate since February till now, changed by 15%. Maybe, President Trump decides there's going to be more tariffs. It's hard to tell what a reality is. We can give you a price when, we've bought everything and know what it's going to be like and what it's actually going to cost. Yes, so that being said, we don't have the series pants yet, but what we do have right now are a group of belts. We have 6 belts. They're double-sided belts. So they work with our existing buckles. So this is part of our Ford Belvedere belt system where you can just, get different buckles. And as time goes on, we're adding more buckles. We add more belts. So you buy into a system, it's going to be around, it's not going to be discontinued. We'll keep things going, we keep adding things, and you can get, fun things that you want. Here, what we did, because it's a reversible belt, we kept the logos very subtle, so no contrasting gold or silver foil embossing. It's very subtle. And also when you wear it, even on the side where the logo is at, right, you would not see it, because as you wear the belt through the buckle, it would be, covered up, like so, right? It would be completely covered up. Here's the logo underneath, and it's covered up, so you would never, ever see it. Now, why a reversible belt, right? The idea is I travel quite a bit, and so weight is always a concern, space. So when you have a reversible belt, it makes it very easy. You can just, flip it around, and you get basically 2 belts in one. Now, with this belt system, let's say, you have 2 belts, you have this dark brown one with black, and you have this one and this one, for example. You have 2 belts, you maybe get 2 buckles. Well, now you have basically combinations for 2. You can have 8 different combinations, which is a lot with a very small package. And as always, what we did here, we added these diamond shape holes. So even if you have a big pin on the buckle, you can very easily open it up. It's nice stitching, 3.5 stitches per centimeter. We have this edge debossing, which is very neat, a very kind of elegant shape. And it's all, it's all leather construction. It's either 2 layers, right, both leathers, and sometimes the box calf, if it's too thin, what we do is we'll add another layer of leather kind of in between. So this is like a black box calf and black togo, and this is an American bison. It's a really nice leather. You can see the peaks are darker, the valleys are lighter. So no matter what the brown shade of your shoe is, it's always going to work. It's definitely more of a casual look. So we have that same bison with a different color in brown. And then the one I'm wearing today, this is like, a white box calf. And oftentimes people don't use that anymore because they feel like, or they maybe have no use for it. But if you think about it, you can wear it with a white sneaker. You can wear it with, white buckskin shoes like I'm wearing them today, or maybe with white boat shoes. It's a really nice summer belt, and even if it doesn't match your shoes, it just looks very nice. It is bright, it provides some contrast, so warm weather, it's really great. And so on the other side, we did this nice German vetch tan leather. It's completely undyed, and it's just a beautiful leather that will patina with age beautifully. It's a beautiful belt, a beautiful leather. You can see, it just, it's all open pore, it's aniline dyed, it's, it smells like leather, it feels like leather. This is what leather used to be, and unfortunately these days often is not. So I really like this belt. And for launch day, at Fort Belvedere, you always get the best deal on launch day. And today, if you buy 1 belt, we'll give you $75 in store credit. There's no coupon that you need. You just, you place the order, give us a little bit of time, we'll add the store credit. If you buy 2 belts, you get $150. You buy 3 belts, $225. 4 belts, $300. You buy 6 belts, and so forth. It goes on. The more belts you buy, the more store credit you get. And if you want to you can make even a purchase right afterwards for maybe like a buckle or something that works for you. So you can head over now, but this offer ends, I think, September 14th, end of day, Sunday. And it's end of day in Central Standard Time, which is our time zone. So keep that in mind. Now, more questions. Good evening from Tokyo. Good evening. Thank you for watching. Grüße aus Hamburg. Hamburg, meine Perle. I used to study in Hamburg. I was in Altona, so I'm very familiar with the city. Let's see here. Another question. What is your opinion about pocket watches? Do you consider them too out of fashion, or can they be styled in a contemporary classic outfit? You know, I think if you wear a pocket watch, you're definitely not mainstream, right? You're interested in being different. And I like pocket watches in the sense that I've even seen people, you know, add solder little holders for like watch straps onto them. You know, that's something you could do. Oftentimes you get a pocket watch, even in solid gold, for a very kind of small price. I think I bought a pocket watch in Vienna, you know, like solid gold, I think Omega, for like 300 euros, 14 karat gold. Like, they were like, oh, we don't know if it works or not. And so it's like, okay, I'll take it. Just the gold value alone is worth it, right? So I think you can get really good deals. It will certainly have a look, and it can be a conversation starter. But I think if you confidently wear it and carry it, it really works. Okay. Thank you all for the years of advice and information. Another good evening from Tokyo. You're welcome. Thank you for watching. What is your opinion about pocket watch? We got that. Where can I get cufflinks with a simple upper design, but without the T-bar? You know, you have to just search on Google, but T-bars are, you know, the vast majority of things because it's the cheapest to produce, but it's not the most elegant. In my mind, you know, why do I wear cufflinks? It's because I want it to be pretty and beautiful and handsome and unique. It's a piece of jewelry, so why choose something that is just ugly, like a T-bar cufflink? So, you know, at Fedora, we always do double-sided cufflinks. Like here, this is our Fox pair, sterling silver. But if you want something more simple, you can certainly go custom. That's expensive, or maybe you find a jeweler who specializes in just, you know, simple designs. When I wear cufflinks, I want them to look special. I don't want something plain, so I'm not the person to ask about that. Grüße aus Österreich. Servus. What's your opinion on dressing more formally on a cruise ship? I personally love it. You know, I think my wife's family, they went on cruises because they, you know, always found it very relaxing. You know, you have kids and you have a lot of work. Going on a cruise ship means you don't have to think about anything. You know, you don't have to think about where to go for dinner. You can just relax and enjoy, and you can spend time on dressing up and feel glamorous and fancy. And it was on a cruise ship that I realized, you know, the boutonnieres they had aboard the ship were just like big roses, and when aboard a boutonniere, it looked really odd. And I was like, I need to have boutonniere flowers that I can bring on a cruise ship that I don't need to water, that are easy, and that's how the Fort Belvedere boutonnieres started on a cruise ship. So I'm a big fan of dressing up on cruise ships. Grüße aus Schweden. Greetings from Sweden. Hi there. Thank you for joining us. Do you still wear a casual ascot? And when an occasion? Yes, I do wear casual ascots. I think, you know, I could have worn an ascot today. I think it's great if you want something that's a bit more casual and unusual, right? That people are not so used to. They're used to seeing a tie. They're less used to seeing a bow tie. They're even less used to seeing an ascot, right? So you can wear an ascot at any point in time. I like to wear it, you know, when I feel kind of a little more casual and relaxed. You can wear it at home. It's a great accessory. What is the most important everyday etiquette rule that people often overlook but make the biggest impression? You know, when I shake hands with people, sometimes, you know, you get a handshake and it's very, very loose, right? So when I shake someone's hand, I look into their eyes and I give them a firm grip. I'm not hurting them. I'm not like squeezing just to show, you know, how much I worked out at the gym. No, but giving a nice handshake and look into each other's eyes and acknowledgement is a really great way to start any conversation. Grüße aus Deutschland. Ja, danke. Grüße zurück. I would love to purchase your new belt line. I have a 36 waist. A high-rise waist would be greater for me. Perhaps I can just buy the larger size because it can be cut to specifics. Yes, one thing that we do here is, all the belts, you buy them and you can cut them down. Now, the reason, we offer 3 different sizes is so we get a better yield on the leather. If we would just offer 1 belt size, right, in the longest size, we would have to waste all the leather pieces that are shorter. Now, if you have a 34-inch waist, you don't need a 42-inch belt and then cut it down and waste that leather. You just need that. So by offering 3 sizes, we're able to offering a lower price. Can you get a larger belt? Yes, you absolutely can. We don't discriminate against people with a larger waist size. So all of our belts cost the same, right? So I would just urge you to consider what is my actual waist size, what do I need, and then buy a belt that fits that. If you say, I have a 37-inch waist, I would suggest that you actually, measure, because sometimes pants say 36, but in fact, it's a 38, right? It's vanity sizing. A lot of brands do it. So please measure and then get the belt that works for you. And when you cut it, what I always suggest is when you get the belt, put on a buckle and then put it on, right? You put on the belt and then you see, okay, if I wear it with this pant, where does it actually end up? Where is it that it hits? I always try to go for the middle hole, right? We have 5 holes, and I'll shoot for the middle hole. Or when I cut it, when I'm like, well, how is my weight fluctuating right now? Am I gaining weight? Am I losing weight? You can always make the belt shorter. You cannot make it longer. So keep that in mind, right? Don't just start cutting. First wear it to see where it's at. Sometimes, if you're here and you can't even close it, okay, cut a little more, try it again, cut a little more. It's a matter of seconds, and you ensure that you end up with a result that really works for you. So I'd say yes, our smallest size works for waists below 37, and we're generous there, right? So if you're 37, it works out nicely. I can wear our shortest belt and be just fine. So the other sizes are there. Let's say a size in 37 is sold out. Of course, you can get the larger ones, and they're still going to work too. That's fine too. Grüße aus Karlsruhe. Ja, Grüße zurück. I was wearing a pair of your two-tone solid socks in his post today. We know you like his style. What's your opinion about a number of white dress shirts men must have? Thank you. It depends on your job, your profession, right? If you're a banker, if you're a lawyer, and I don't know what your setup is. Maybe, you have someone come and launder your shirts every week, right? Then I would say get at least 8. So, 1 for every day, plus 1, maybe you get a stain on someone and you have to exchange it, right? Maybe someone comes, maybe you do laundry just every 2 weeks. Well, now you need, at least 15 if you want to wear a white shirt every day. Now, white shirt is not all the same. I think you can get different weaves, right? You can get sometimes a slightly different color, like an écru or an off-white. You can get like self-stripes. You can get different collar shapes. So you can have a variation there. Is it important to you, or do you look at it more like a uniform, where you wear the same shirt, same collar, same cuff style, same everything every day? I don't know. So it's a personal thing. Like, what's the minimum? It really depends on your lifestyle and what you do. Thank you for the live Q&As. If you were to have a 10 shoe collection, what would they be? Styles, color, materials, please. Okay, I don't wear very often, but I would say, black cap toe Oxford, #1 box calf leather. Then I would get a, suede lazy man in like a chocolate brown with like contrast stitching. I would get a Norwegian shoe, medium chestnut brown. I think that's very nice. I would get a penny loafer of some type, maybe in alligator, in burgundy. I think that's very nice. Or something brown. Maybe, if you want darker colors, like dark brown works too. I would get a white buckskin shoe because that is very different. I would get a patent leather opera pump because that I could wear with black tie. I would get a pair of, boat shoes in kind of a fun color. I would get a pair of boat shoes in maybe like a brown color. I would get a pair of flip-flops for the beach, Havaianas. My dad's from Brazil. I also have Brazilian citizenship. They were born in Brazil, so gotta mention that. And then, I would get a pair of trainers, tennis shoes, something, maybe like a pair of track shoes, so I could wear it, mountain biking, I could wear it hiking, but I could also use it running. So there you have it. Do you plan to have any distributor in Turkey? Because current import laws, yes. Using distributors and stuff like that, maybe that's something we do in the future. It's just a lot more complex, right? You need to find someone that you trust. You need to have the stock levels, everything. For now, all the Fedora products you can buy here will be maybe expanded in the future. Maybe we'll probably first, expand in the US and then maybe in Europe, other places, Australia, wherever the demand is. What are must-read books for Anglophile gentlemen? We'd probably have to create a whole list around that. I mean, there's too many to name. Hello, love gentlemen, because the videos are really ready to work. Can I ask about any advice for a teen 15-year-old that you'd love to look stylish, but is a bit afraid of other option and prices? Yes, I hear, when you're 15, it's not easy, right? You maybe get teased at school and people are like, oh, what are you wearing? Do you think you're better than me, right? So it's hard. Just wanted to acknowledge that. I was in your shoes, I was 15 when I was interested in this kind of stuff. So I found I lived in a small town, and I found that, eBay and used platforms were really, really helpful for me. Also, you have great videos now. You can find brands. I did a video about like how I shop on eBay. I would suggest you watch that. That way you can find good brands, at a budget that works for you, and you can slowly build up and not spend a lot of money on something that only going to wear it twice. Cost per wear is the keyword here. That's really important when you're just starting out. Also, when you're 15, you're still at the place where you're growing, right? Your feet are probably not at the size they're going to be. Everything else changes with your body physiology. So, don't, spend 20 grand on something that, 2 years from now you can't wear anymore. Saluti da Firenze. Ciao. What is your opinion on wearing suits in school? I like double-breasted ones. It will make you stand out, right? If you feel comfortable in it and it's something that you wear, I'd say, if it's you, go for it. Ask yourself, why do you want to wear it, right? Do you want to wear it because you want to show others that you're better than them? Maybe that's not the right reason. Maybe you want to wear it because it makes you feel, really good. Yeah, that's a great reason. And hopefully, you have a friend group that is accepting of people who are different, and not everyone, watching the same movies, listening to the same music, wearing the same thing. It's more like peer pressure, right? And it's good if you can, at an early age, develop your own sense of style. Really appreciate your work. What do you think of pairing dark brown desk boots with navy or charcoal gray Klausers? Much love, danke. I think it can work. It's a darker combination, and it can work very well. What's your favorite cologne? Creed, Tom Ford, Mont Blanc. It has changed over time, right? Like I remember when I met my wife, I had like Mont Blanc Individuel, and she really liked that. And scent is oftentimes, a trigger. Like you connect certain moments with one another. I have to say though, I'm very open to trying different things, right? And wearing a fragrance based on my mood and my outfit, right? I'm like, if I'm wearing a tweed suit, I'm not wearing a light summery scent. I want something more substantial, more like old school. So it's really hard for me to pin down one scent, right? Like my wife, for example, likes green Irish tweed. So you can also do like Davidoff Cool Water, for example. I just like to mix it up. Some people like that signature scent where they smell the same every day. I don't like that. I like something different every day. Lately, I find myself, I've got some Mont Blanc, I got some vintage stuff. When we do videos about scents, we have a big collection, and so I can choose many different things, Eau Sauvage. And then I realize, they don't smell very intensely. So lately I like colognes more with a higher oil concentration that will last throughout the day. So Roberto Golini is a favorite, of course. Yeah, Greed has some, like Aventus, for example, is out there, but I find it doesn't last quite as long as I would like. But yeah. Job McLaren. Hello, Job. No bash plans for the upcoming year. Yeah, Job joined us for the Belvedere Bash. It was an event that we held here in Minneapolis, and Job was really expertly dressed. He even invited me to his wedding, and unfortunately I couldn't make it, but I'm sure he was also expertly dressed there. And we like this idea of creating events where people can come and all dress up in a way that oftentimes, you can't, right? A lot of people say, well, I'd like to wear this, white tie ensemble, but I can't. Well, at the Bash, you could, right? And you were among like-minded peers who love that. What we found, though, it was a lot of work, like we lost money on it. So as a business, we have to make sure we balance things out. We did an event, in England, and it was really nice, people dressed up, and it was cool. We have to find that balance between, how much work goes into it without needing an event planner, and how can we make it work. So as we travel, maybe we'll have more of these things going, but there's a whole aspect to liability, insurance, it's all, the more organized you are, the more difficult it gets, people suing you and stuff, and you have to weigh benefits versus risks. But, from in my heart, this is something I want to do going forward, and I want to make it part of the Gentleman's Gazette. And so I'll try to incorporate it. Maybe there are some collaborations we can do with the Sartorial Club or, Gen C or others. We'll look what options are out there, and we'll try to do more of that. Now for a hard-hitting question, least favorite Fort Belvedere product. Oh yeah, I think of all the products that we offer, my least favorite one was our it was a knit tie that we had that was knitted round, and it was too sloppy, and we discontinued it. Likewise with a belt, we did a belt, and you see this buckle here, right? This buckle has a metal loop, and the buckle, and then you have this buckle here that also has a width. Now this width was a little wider, and when we made the belts, we discussed all the specs, and then we always send like a buckle to the manufacturer saying, test it with the belt, make sure it all fits. Now you see down here, there's an opening where you put the belt in, right? And we had a whole batch of belts where, they just tested this. They tested this. What they didn't test is, did it fit through here? And so that the fit was extremely tight on other belts, which would mean, it would really scratch on the leather here. So then we kind of, discontinued it. That was something that, was really bad. And then, we once had a collar clip that we got, and it came, it looked the same, but it turned out the manufacturer had made a change to the coils, so the coils weren't strong anymore. So we got, complaints. So we discontinued it, and then we made same ones with strong coils again and offered those again. So if there's a product, I don't like, if it's not up to par, we'll take it out and discontinue it. Because ultimately, it's like, I've built this, right, and like this is a passion project, and so I don't want to sell something that I wouldn't want to wear myself, right? I want to wear a double-breasted waistcoat only with a very high-waisted trousers. Should I wear an ascot tie or a cravat with it? It's a very personal question. There's no right or wrong. Are you going to do more of your What Men Really Wore videos? Are we going to see one for the 80s? Yes, we could. We could also go back, what did men wear in the 1700s? That would more appeal to people who are just strictly interested, in the historic sense and what we did, less so in like what we wear today and how it's affected. Does the no white sock rule apply when wearing white trousers? No. Generally, right, when you have rules, they're there to kind of help you and make things simple, but you can always think them through, right? There's the rule to say, match your socks with your pants, okay? One rule. And then never wear white socks. Okay, well, now you have white pants. Yes, you want a white pair of socks that creates that uniform look. When I was, on my high school graduation, I bought this like white Nehru jacket suit. A Nehru jacket, if you don't know what it is, look it up. It's kind of like a collar, it was buttoned all the way up. And I thought it looked really cool. And I wore it with like a black belt and black shoes. I would not do that. If you go with the white pants and white socks, maybe get, like a light brown pair of shoes, maybe even white shoes. Don't get a stark like black. Spectators can look really cool. I gather that many of you at GG are jazz fans. What are some of your favorite artist albums? I'm not, I like to listen to jazz, but I'm not like, know everything about it. Preston, on the other hand, he's all about jazz. He likes to, he's a jazz singer, he likes to listen to it. He's at the local like jazz club all the time. So you gotta ask Preston about that. Hi, Raphael, I've been watching for many years. Thank you, Owen's channel with the Mont Blanc logo. I appreciate you. Travis Stone, there's a guy on eBay with some good prices on black tie. I was able to put it 100% wool on one nice button shirt using Amazon, Adam Baker. Yeah, great, if you can find something that works in your budget. Now, just because something is 100% wool, that's a good first step. What I've found is, there's also label fraud, right? Sometimes what the label says is not necessarily what's in it. And there's always a big difference. You can have 100% cotton, where the cotton costs, $100 per kilo, and you have cotton that costs, $1,000 per kilo. So just because it's 100% cotton doesn't mean it's the same thing. There's all sorts of, it's highly complex. It's the staple length of the raw material. It's like the thickness of the material, how it is twisted, how it is finished. Is it a single ply? Is it a 2-ply, 3-ply, 4-ply? So yes, it's good to get certain things, but don't always assume that, if you get 100% wool from this brand, that is exactly the same thing as in that brand. Shorts to work, go or no go? Again, it depends. For example, right? My daughter goes to school 2 miles away, 3.2 kilometers. So I bike with her, right? And when it's 86 or 100 degrees outside, 40 degrees Celsius, I bike in shorts. I wear shorts, and then I go to the office and I keep my shorts on because it's practical, it works for my lifestyle. So being well dressed doesn't mean you never wear shorts, right? Of course, do I wear cargo shorts? No, I wear nice seersucker shorts in bold patterns, I wear a belt, I wear boat shoes, I have a cool polo shirt, because I like style. And so even when I wear this kind of more casual outfit, I try to make it look interesting and unique and different. But you can wear that. You can wear it at the beach, on vacation, Do I show up like that, going out, dinner at a nice restaurant? No, that's the wrong place. Will I show up like that, for lunch on the beach? Yes, because it makes sense. What inspired you to start this channel and to be a gentleman? Well, it was a hobby, right? I started as a teenager. I was a paper boy, and I was trying to make that work. And then in Germany, you write with fountain pens. I bought some fountain pens, and then I bought a lot. And I've shared the story many times. Go check it out for the full story. My question is, I wear braces, but during colder months, I choose to wear braces with trousers. How am I going to pair them with sweaters? Frankly, I would not wear braces with sweaters because oftentimes on a brace, you have metal parts. You have little pointy parts. And if you snag, if it gets underneath kind of a sweater and you pull, you may ruin the sweater. Also, the sweater typically is more fitted and you see the kind of suspenders underneath it a lot more. So I'd say, with a sweater probably, if you need it, wear a belt. You can wear maybe pants with side adjusters. That's another option. And that doesn't work for everyone. If you were a gentleman, with a more prominent midsection, you'll need a belt, you'll need the suspenders. If you're thin, you can wear just pants, they stay up. That being said, if you wear your pants at your natural waist, they always stay up better than if they're down in your hip. Could you make a series on the best ready-to-wear brand from every European country? Yeah, we could, but like best brand for what? For one thing. And then, brands change, manufacturers change, what they use changes. So it would only be valid for a certain point in time. We'll try to, give our opinion, and we do these ratings, but in order to give you true value, I can't just buy it, look at it, and grade it. I have to wear it. And then by the time sometimes, I'm done with my verdict, it's no longer there for sale. So it's like, oh, come on, it's easier, easier, it's more difficult than it sounds, I would say. Could you make us, if you resole a shoe, do you go through the original manufacturer or a third party? At this point in my life, I don't resole shoes anymore because I have a large enough assortment that's not my concern. But I did, resole shoes, and I used to do that. I would always do it at the local cobbler. I would not send it back to the factory. Now, if you send it back to the factory, you get a better result. It's just more, you have to ship it there. They do stuff. If you have a cobbler that you trust, that does good work, where they're not just, stitching over everything and screwing everything up, I would go that route. If you're not sure, I would go send it back to the factory. Now, factory also has the advantage that you can really change something. For example, Jack, he bought a pair, I think, Edward Greens or whatever it was, and he felt they were a little too wide. So he sent it back to the factory and said, hey, could you remake them and then just use a different last? So they used a different last, and he got a shoe that fit him better. So these are all things you can do at the factory. So if that's an option, and also check the price, right? If your cobbler charges $100 and the factory is $150, well, maybe it's worth doing it at the factory. I'm watching this from India. Can you help me with dressing according to my culture, as we had a rich and diverse history and royalty? Yeah, that would be an interesting topic. From the top of my head, I'm not, an expert on Indian culture and history, so I'd have to look more into it. But the Nehru jacket, for example, right? It's associated with India, so you can can take local things and add them to your outfit. Best council estate brands to wear to the council house next weekend. I don't know what council house is. No idea. Someone's calling me. All right. I just found myself a 1930s suit, I think. It's double-breasted, navy with stripes. The pants are white and has suspender buttons. Congratulations. What do you think about getting clothes from value sets like Alibaba or buying clothes from India? Made in is a broad term. Can you find cheap stuff from China and from India? Yes. Can you find high-quality stuff from China and from India? Yes. Alibaba, usually, what you get on Alibaba is the stuff you find on Amazon, cheaper, right? But it's most of the time lower quality. Maybe can you find something high quality? Absolutely, right? There's a brand like 100 Hands in India. They make a handmade shirt, complete handmade, all in India. Great, phenomenal, product and craftsmanship. So, that's something to keep in mind. And yes, you can do it. Alibaba for clothes, I guess you have to look very hard, and then you have to send it in. Now in the US, it's different, with customs and all that stuff. It's more expensive. You can't return it. But, if you want to risk it and see what you get, why not? What do you think about getting clothes from, Wilford Belvedere will be making watch bands in the future. I would love that. I'm sure we all would. Well, thanks for asking, Jason Giggins. It is definitely something online. We've done prototypes. We looked at different manufacturers. And, if we do it, then we wanted to do it at the highest level, like hand-sewn and, nice leathers, Barenia leathers and all that stuff. So, yes, it's just, we have lots of other products, lots of other things going. So I would say, I don't want to make any promises, but it's not going to be before 2026, maybe 2027. But it is on our radar, and we want to make it, with the right buckles, high standards, everything. So we're still testing prototypes and make sure we get everything right. What's your opinion on Spear and Mackay? I did a video about them, I think maybe about their shirts, and I kind of a love-hate relationship with Spear Mackay, right? I love that they make classic style accessible, new at a lower price point. That's fantastic. I don't like that, their customer service really sucks. When you order something, sometimes you just don't get it. Their sizing is really difficult. So you can buy one shirt in that size and it fits one way. You buy another one, a different fabric in the same size, it fits another way. So you really have to know with the linen shirts, the linen shirts all run a little bigger than their cotton shirts. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. But I appreciate that they're there, that they're serving a need. And so that's good. I like that they try to do different patterns. I bought a pair of like knit polos from them because I like their patterns. So yes, love-hate relationship. Blazer over a polo, shirt and chinos. Any mismatch or different combination? I don't quite understand that question. Yes, you can wear a blazer over a polo shirt, and with chinos that works. I would probably go with a long sleeve polo shirt. I don't like the short sleeve polo shirt with the blazers, but yeah. What are the mistakes that make a suit look cheap? Well, first of all, it's like getting a cheap suit that is glued. That makes it always look cheap. Wearing a suit with a pair of cheap shoes, that can really, even if you have a very expensive suit with cheap shoes, it brings down the look. And then I think anything that's super trendy, like if you get like lapels that are super narrow or something super wide, or that makes it look cheap too. Should I dress nice for sports? Well, I don't think the tennis white outfit with a tennis sweater to play tennis is the way to go. I would say, look for something that makes you feel comfortable and allows you to do the things you need to do. But then, try to make that as stylishly as you can. In an individual sport, if you're in a team sport, you're part of the team. It doesn't make sense to stand out. You should be part of the team. That's more important there. What's your opinion on a bowler hat? I love bowler hats. I think they're great because they're different. They're stiff, and so you need it much better fitted. If you get a size 60 Fedora, there's flex. With a bowler hat, you have to make sure that it fits, otherwise you have a headache. But I think the look is really cool with a suit, even like tuxedo. I think it's great. I don't wear it enough, and that's probably one of the things I have to do this year is, I used to get lots of breakouts on my forehead when I wore hats. My wife found some product like soap that I can use, and then I get fewer breakouts. So I want to wear more hats because I love the look. I didn't like the zits. Now I can have the look without the zits. I have to consciously make an effort, and probably, yes, it's something I want to do and I have to do. Just quick reminder again, we launched these belts today. These are beautiful double-sided belts, made to stand the test of time, high-quality leather. This one is, for example, made of bison leather, and bison, is about, I think, 40%, maybe 60% more robust than cowhide or bullhide, and it has this beautiful texture. So this, for example, is like a shrunken bison, which is very similar to our shrunken Togo calf. It's a natural material. Most other brands, when they give you a Scotch grain, they take plain leather and then just take a stamp and emboss the pattern onto it. Not so here. This is basically treated, and then the leather shrinks, and you get a unique structure. No leather is like another. It's a truly unique piece that you will have like one of one. But it's part of our belt system, so that means you can cut them to your exact size. They work with all the buckles that we have in our system. You can buy other belts and build your collection, and you get a multitude, option for combinations. And they're all, we all tested these leathers so they don't rub off. Let's say you wear white pants, you can wear them both sides and nothing is going to color off on your clothes. We had some leathers that we thought we could make into double-sided belts that we couldn't. So, we're going to do those as single layer belts, right? So if you were wondering why aren't all belts reversible, that's one of the reasons. You can't make certain letters reversible without damaging your clothes, and that's the last thing we would want. for you. And if you buy a belt during the launch period, which ends September 14th, you get a $75 store credit for every belt you buy. So the belts started, I think, at $230 with $230 and $245. If you buy one belt, you get a $75 store credit applied to your account. Just give us a little bit after the purchase, we'll add it. If you buy two belts, you get 150, three belts, 225, and so forth. What kind of music you listen to? Okay, I like, on a more pop side, I like Sarah Bareilles, how she calls herself. I think it's a French name, they would probably say Bareilles, but I like her. I like Walter Wanderley. He's a Brazilian kind of funky organist. I like Gilberto Gil, is also Brazilian. I like Herbert Grönemeyer. I would say I have a broad spectrum. I like classic rock. I like Queen. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. Okay, how do I deal with suit companies that only offer 6-7 drop from jacket pants combo? I'm 44 by 32 pants. I can never shop from these places. Yes, you cannot. You will never find a off-the-rack company that offers this drop because it's too rare. You have to go like made to measure, so they can accommodate that. That's just unfortunate, but you will not find an off-the-rack brand that accommodates that. Lovely sports coat, what is it? This is a custom coat. It was, I think, made by Hem Rajani, but I actually bought it secondhand off of eBay. I think it was $100. But I like the detail. It had it's like, I think like belt in the back, half belt, has like nice patch pockets with flaps and stuff. So, I love vintage clothing, and even though I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to buy it, right? I could buy it new. I still love it because I love the fabrics. I like the, if I see quality, I know it. I don't need a brand label. I don't need anything. If I see a nice leather belt, I know whether it's crap or not. And I learned it over time, right? By touching lots of materials, being there. And so whenever I make something new, I'll make sure it's up to my standards. Again, I'm not going to sell you anything that I wouldn't wear myself. How do you feel about exclusive watch brands these days, playing with exclusivity rather than customer knowledge and loyalty? As a brand, any brand, right, you need to find people who want to buy your stuff. There's no, right or wrong. It's ultimately, no one is forced to buy stuff from you. And from a psychological perspective, I think, if they find customers who are willing to be, treated like crap or, pay exorbitant prices, and that's what they want, right? They understand their customer. And maybe the customer who wants to buy this, the sole goal is to show others how much money you have, right? And all that stuff. I think for me, I'm much less about what do others think of me. I'm like, I look more intrinsically, like what do I care about? What is important to me? And then make decisions that way. Like, I don't care if you look at me and think I'm a rich snob or, an arrogant asshole or the greatest person in the world, right? Your thoughts are yours, but that doesn't motivate me or drive me or impact my decisions. All right, it's already 11. I think we're hitting the hour here. I know there are lots of questions and people have lots more questions. I think I'll go maybe 10 more minutes just to try to answer as much as I can, and then we're gonna wrap it. How do you handle having odd color shoes that you can't get a matching belt? I have several in non-standard colors: red, green, gray. I do like the white always kind of works, right? So if you can't match it, you can go intentionally bold and different. You could also try like a fabric belt. I have a belt with some madras fabric, which has multiple colors. So it's more casual. And if you wear red and blue and green shoes, that's already kind of outside the realm of very classic conservative colors. So you could play with that. I don't have a question, but just a friendly moin from Germany. Moin. It's moin is a way to say hello in parts of northern Germany. You would never say that in like southern Germany or western Germany or eastern Germany. Hey, good morning. Please, will you all do every decade's clothing but the 19th century? Yeah, we could try to do that again. Of course, we always look at, what are people watching? What are they interested in, right? What can we change? What can we do? And we want to kind of, serve you better and entertain you better, all while educating you. And so we always take different approaches. For example, the Vienna series, right? It was try from us to say, hey, maybe you came to the Gentleman's Gazette because you wanted to learn all the basic rules, but now, after being here for 2 years, you've learned all the basics. Well, how can we provide value to you by giving you something that is, beyond the basics, right? So, yeah, if you have ideas, let us know, leave it in the comments. We monitor stuff, and if multiple people say the same things, we try to offer that. You can hear that we have some craftspeople working in a house, and we live in a house from like 1901 to 1902 when it was built. So it's an old house, and it's like a boat. It always needs some work. So we have some siding work done, and I told them, don't hammer, and they didn't. But maybe they're doing some, I don't know what. Okay, message deleted. Okay. How can a young man signal refinement and seriousness in formal wear without looking like he's trying too hard? Okay. I think there is that concept of like, if you want to look very nonchalant, you spend, 2 hours folding your pocket square so it looks like you just, threw it in there. That's one approach. I think, if you're younger and you're concerned about being perceived as too kind of focused, I'd say, stick with the basics, but maybe, get a bow tie, like a self-tie bow tie that you can untie at the end of the evening to create a more relaxed look that way. And I would say, if you want to add a personality, right, maybe choose one different color other than black and white. Maybe, choose socks that are maybe burgundy or green, or maybe choose a pocket square, right? Don't try to do the red pocket square, the bold boutonniere, the different socks. Choose one color accent that is different, and that won't look like you're trying too hard, but it will make you stand out in a pleasant way. What brands can you recommend specifically for odd sport coats? Really, when it comes to jackets, like the fit is paramount, and anything else doesn't really matter so much, right? Like the fit has to fit, the fit has to work for you. Like this other gentleman with the big drop, yes, ketone may have a nice fabric, but it's not going to work for you. We do sometimes brand reviews for jackets, and we talk about just the make of stuff, so you can check those out. But making these like bold claims, it doesn't serve anyone, because it's like the budget is different, the needs are different. Yeah. Do you plan to make a tie bar? Good question. We actually, we have the monkey fist knot cufflinks, which is, something that is technically built out of a rope. And then we have the monkey fist knot studs. We have a monkey fist knot tie bar, and we made it, and I've worn it. And once, I wore it, and I lost it. So now I went back to the jeweler, and we're changing the design. And everybody, these designs, that's carved from wax. It's not so easy, right? You have to go back and redo stuff. We just want to make sure that it really grips under all circumstances, so you don't, end up losing it one day accidentally. Can I get some tips, especially when it gets colder in the fall and winter? Yes, I think one of the most underrated things are boots that are fur-lined, right? So you get a nice-looking boot that is warm. You're not wearing these like plasticky, cheap boots with like, 3M Thinsulate or whatever. You're wearing a nice product. They're harder to find. I found some from like a Hungarian brand. I can't recall the name. They're the same guys as like Shoe Passion. Like they changed names. Heinrich Dinkelacker. They have them. We went to Ludwig Reiter in Vienna has them. That's really nice. Really nice, fur. So yeah, check for that. That's a really nice thing in my mind. Recommendations for a basic T-shirt. I'd say not our channel. I don't wear T-shirts myself, really. I usually wear polo shirts or like dress shirts. T-shirts, even when I work out, it's very rare that I wear them. So check out Tim the Saint. He's more about that kind of stuff. He'll be the guy to go there. Keep up the great work. We love your products. Thank you very much. We'll make more products if more of you people support us. So yeah, if this works for you and understand price-wise, our products don't work for everyone. But the reason is, we don't start out and say, we want to make a belt for $20. That's never our approach. We say, we want to make a really high quality belt with really nice leathers that's really well thought out stylistically and from the design perspective and from a longevity perspective. And then we make the product and then we set the price. That's how we operate. Are used or secondhand Mont Blanc pens worth purchasing, or should I stick with new? Mont Blanc is a heavily faked brand. So I would say buy used from trusted sources. Like, people on eBay that have a reputation to lose, sellers. You can definitely get used Mont Blanc pens, absolutely. When you buy a Mont Blanc pen, always keep in mind you're paying a premium, right? It's like buying, I don't know, an Armani suit or Dolce & Gabbana or Gucci brand. You will always pay heavily for the premium. If you're fine with that and you like the style, go for it. You can cut down on the price by going, secondhand and get stuff that way. Love your fine dining tutorials. Help me so much in many dining situations. Never stop what you're doing. You're the best. Gentlemen of the gentleman. Thank you very much. Thoughts on vicuña? Vicuña is extremely expensive, and it's one of those luxury. It's very soft and it's very nice. But finishing is always the question. How do you finish something? And you can probably finish cashmere now at a very similar level to vicuña. But vicuña, you can say, it costs $20,000. Yes, I personally am not, in vicuña. I had the chance to buy a jacket length of vicuña at I think 2,000 pounds, which is relatively inexpensive, but I didn't, because I just didn't care for it enough. I appreciate your passion. Thank you. Do you have a variety of wristwatches for various occasions? I'm not a big wristwatch guy. I'm getting a few more. I have like a 1930s, Reverso. I also have an Apple Watch, I use it to work out and get my heart rate and keep all that kind of dialed in. And I have a few other vintage watches and pocket watches. But I'll probably expand my collection. There's certain items that I like. I wouldn't use it to just look at it. It's more like it's a jewelry piece for me, right? Yeah. Oh, what do you think about decreasing penmanship? I get it, it's real, right? It's it's an old school thing, but when you write with a pen, it's different, right? You think about, well, what paper am I going to use? What color font am I going to use? How am I going to write? It's a much more deliberate process. So if you enjoy that process, I think it can be almost meditative to do that. And it's, when you receive a handwritten letter, and sometimes people write us, handwritten letters. I don't have the time to, handwrite you a letter back. So, but we read them, and it's nice, right? It's definitely, if you want to mark an important occasion, I think it's really great. Is it decreasing? Yes. You can't change people, right? If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Are people all going to wear hats again? Probably not, and that's okay. But if you like it, go for it. All right, my friends, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching, other videos. I appreciate you for supporting us by buying our products. And I understand, not everyone can do everything, and that is okay. If you are in the market for a belt, where it's being this white belt with the veg tan, undyed German leather, or other, brown tones, bison belts, black belts, or our, we had a best-selling black and kind of chocolate brown. If you buy it today and until September 14th, you'll get a $75 store credit for each reversible belt that you buy. It's going to be the best deal you'll ever have. So if you're considering it, now is the good time to buy. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for more cool projects that we have up our sleeve. I think you'll like them.